What's going on, people? Hello and welcome to What's Hot. I'm Mano Myarz.
And I am Lovedale, and today we're discussing why there's still a stigma around mental health in the black community.
And today joining us is our special guest, Ine Fabe.
Hi guys, thank you for having me.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, of course, we know that mental health is becoming an increasing concern in today's society, but for some reason, the black community seems a bit behind, like we're not quite getting it and
We're not there yet.
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts? Yeah.
I think that's a tricky one, I think it depends on where you're based. So here in the UK, obviously we see mental health on the agenda all the time, and even in social media, it's coming a lot more to the forefront. But however, like you said, within the black community, there is still a bit of stigma, and people are still a bit ashamed to talk about it. And I think that's more to do with cultural factors. Like people don't like admitting weakness or vulnerability, especially like black people, because you've got so much more in the world to contend with, so that makes it kind of difficult. But we know that mental health affects everybody. Surveys taken last year said it affected 1 in 4 people, but if you think about even that one person, they've had a family, they've got a mum, they've got a dad, so even if you're dealing with something, that can affect the people around you's mental health as well. So something that actually affects everyone. So I think, we need to start taking more action and more responsibility and just being able to talk, because talking helps, and that's just the beginning of everything.
Yeah. I think there's always been this thing where people expect black people to be strong. Like we're not allowed to show weakness. I don't know if it's a self-imposed thing or people have put it on us, but if you look at our history and everything that we've been through, there's always this thing of we're survivors, we've got to be strong. So there's almost no time to actually think about, I'm struggling with this, you've just got to keep going. And I think we have so much that we're contending with in the world. You've got racial issues, for example, that you're contending with. There's that thing of, because you're black, you feel like you've got to do extra to prove that you're worthy of everything that you're having. So
Absolutely.
When you're fighting for all of that, where's the space to start thinking, oh my God,
maybe I need therapy.
Maybe I need therapy. Who's got time? Do you know what I mean? And it's quite sad actually that we've kind of come to that. Yeah.
I fully agree with both of you guys actually. I feel like with mental health, it's there is still a huge stigma surrounding it, and I feel like the reason is because people are uneducated to a certain extent. They're misinformed.
Yeah.
There needs to be more awareness needs to be raised within the BAME community, because I feel like it's looked upon as a weakness, and I feel like that's where this whole element of being strong comes from. It's also naive in a sense, because someone can have a mental health problem, and that's something that's unseen. Whereas if you may have a broken limb, a broken leg,
physical health is
it is definitely easy to see. So it's how would you even engage, in the first instance with someone that is suffering from mental health issues that it may not be widely known?
But then I think that's the thing, because we act like when it's mental health, then it's this, hush hush thing that no one can talk about. Whereas I promise you, a lot of people have mental health issues, but they walk around every day smiling, talking to you, busting jokes, having banter, and you have no idea. Anxiety, even stress is a mental health condition if it gets to a certain extent. Anxiety, depression, these are things that people deal with every day in high numbers. And I think maybe one of the things holding people back is how do I actually deal with it? Not everyone feels comfortable having medication or going to therapy and talking to people they don't know about their issues. And I feel like that's where, as the black community, we can actually come together, because a lot of us have maybe religious beliefs that can actually help, just being involved in a community. And if you feel like maybe I can't go to the therapist, maybe you can go to someone at your church or your mosque, or just someone in your family to speak to them, and find other ways and other outlets to deal with whatever you're going through.
I think that there might be a generational thing, as you were talking, I'm thinking generational thing where, as black people, we're always taught you don't share your business outside. From your parents, your grandparents, it's whatever happens stays here. And they never saw it as a negative thing. It's a sense of dignity and pride. It's you don't wash your dirty laundry in public.
Absolutely.
So maybe there's a sense of, if I go out and I'm oh my God, I am suffering depression, I'm going through this, I'm going through that. It's kind of airing your dirty laundry, and we're not accustomed to talking to random people or strangers about stuff that's going on inside. Or do you know what I mean? We're not accustomed to that. We haven't been raised that way. And I do think with kind of the newer generations that are coming up, we are becoming more comfortable, and it could be because of social media, more awareness. But I'm not sure with the older generations how easy it would be to kind of break that stigma.
That cycle. But what do you think we can possibly do to change it, in terms of to influence a new era, of dealing with this stigma, to kind of broaden our horizons about how we will discover it, probably raise that conversation? I think it's a little bit touchy-feely, isn't it, the subject? It's a bit sensitive. So how would one, I guess, start a conversation or You know, try to...
Well, I guess it's just having that conversation. Like, it's about being out there and letting people know if you've ever struggled with something or overcome something. I think that it shouldn't be something you hide. That should be something like, hey, do you know what? I actually went through this, but this is how I coped, or I'm still coping. Because we're all people, and, you know, social media can also have the negative effect where you only see the highlights of people's lives and you feel like, oh, I need to be perfect all the time. I need to have my game face on. And
Absolutely.
I think that actually, you know, hinders a lot of people from like talking about what they're going through or just sharing the parts of their life that aren't so great. But the reality is, in everybody's life, you're going to have ups and you're going to have downs. And if you only, you know, highlight one part and you talk about the good bits, then, you know, you're not being true to yourself anyway. And that's why maybe as a community, you end up struggling more, because you can't really point out and say like, oh, this person went through this person went through that. And that's what helps the young people to be like, oh, well, actually it's okay. Like, I can be sad for now, but then, you know, things will get better.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I think education, like you said, there's a lack of understanding. I think a lot of time when we think about mental health, we think of extreme, you think of schizophrenia, you think of those kind of psychosis. But like you said, stress, depression, anxiety, even these things are still classed under mental health issues.
Indeed, yes.
So I think making people understand that, maybe when they hear, oh, you know, you need to kind of deal with mental health, they're like, whoa, I haven't got all
Absolutely,
of this. But making them
yes.
understand it's down to the small things, it's about self-care.
Exactly.
And making them understand that there's many different therapies, many different ways of overcoming. Of course, there's things like medication. Not everyone's comfortable with medication,
indeed,
but then
yes.
there's therapy, there's counselling, there's seeing a psychologist. So there's something, I would say, for everyone, depending on what you're kind of comfortable with. Start somewhere, even if it's just having that conversation.
Yes.
And from there, you know, it can progress to
Exactly.
something else. You mentioned people like your communities, your religious organisations. I think there's a responsibility on those organisations to also educate their communities and put things in place to help them.
And offer that kind of support, definitely. And I just think with any kind of health, both physical or mental, prevention is better than cure. So it's not all about waiting to have a breakdown or waiting to feel sad or waiting to break your leg. It's actually like, what can I do day to day to just make sure I'm taking care of myself, to make sure I'm okay. Just being in tune with your feelings, like, oh, was today really stressful? Did I have a good day? Why is that? And the more aware you are of yourself and how you're feeling, the more you'd be able to even combat having any sort of extreme issues in the future kind of thing. And just fostering the habit of being open, checking on your friends, guys. You know, are you okay, love?
Absolutely. I guess we have to take it there sometime, but do you also feel like religion can also be not a help but a hindrance in a certain sense? Because if like one comes across, you know, in our community, do you know what I mean?
What are you trying to say?
Like, no,
What are you
honestly,
trying to say?
No, honestly, like, so, you know, coming from like, you know, a BAME community where our people are sort of like religious, you know, and they've got strong beliefs, that can also be a hindrance and not a help, because they would say, you know, for instance, that one's not well, or it's not right, you know, there's something not right, you know, so there could be a thin line between a help and hindrance within religion. So I do think it can help to a certain extent, but as I said, actually, when we was having a conversation with Andrea Corbett, she did say it's not something you can pray about. Like, you can't break your leg and be like, I'm going to pray about it and it's going to heal. You need medical attention. So I feel like with mental health, it's unseen.
But I think, again, it depends, because it depends on the condition you're talking about. Not every mental health condition has to be medicated. You don't necessarily have to take, and you know, there's a lot of other things, even like talking therapies, cognitive behavioral therapy, things like that are shown to be really effective. So it's not always about taking medication, which means like, even though in as much as you can go to a therapist and pay for those sessions and speak about it, you know, if, for example, you had a friend or your mum or your pastor who you could speak to, you could also get that benefit.
Okay.
Do you understand? But of course, there are people who need to take medication, and that's okay. Like, even, you know, there's nothing bad, or again, we have a lot of stigma and things like that. There's nothing bad in having to take medication for a condition, because we know it's your health, and people have things, maybe levels in their brains of certain neurotransmitters are not, you know, correct, and they need to take medication to help them to, you know, feel happy and things like that, and that's absolutely fine. So it just depends on the condition we're dealing with. I don't think there's a one size fits all, you know, remedy for all of it.
Absolutely. And just to round it up, what are your final thoughts on steps we can take to, I guess, make a change, you know, even if it's just the slightest?
If you're going through something or overcome something, share it, check on your friends, and just don't be embarrassed. It's life and everyone goes through it.
Absolutely, I'll echo that as well. What would you say?
I think it's not something that's going to go away. Mental health issues are very, very real. So we might as well face it head on.
Absolutely.
And like I said before, just find the therapy that works for you. Just, you know, it takes a lot of bravery. Just take that first step, even if it's like you said, having that conversation, going to see a counsellor. They can then direct you to people that can really help you further.
Thanks for your thoughts on that, Lovedale and Ine. So we're going to take a short break right now, but join us back after the break when we'll be chopping up trending topics.
And we'll be playing our game, hot or cold.
Yes.
See you after the break. Hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Hot. Make sure you like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to share it with all your friends. See you next time.